told me recently, I'd forgotten it, about the Dust Bowl. I remember.
Well, yes, that was very vivid in my mind. We had the dust storms that would roll up in the early 30s, and they would come up, just roll huge clouds, dark red clouds. Well, this time the whole family was over to school. I probably was not even in school yet, but if we went to some school activity in the evening, and the wind got to kicking up, and so we all left for home. And we had that 29 Chevy, and we got all the way to the bottom of the hill south of the house, and it conked out on us. And it was dark, it was night, and the dust was blowing at night. And we got out of the car then, and we went to the west ditch, and you either held me on I either rode on your back or on your shoulders. I always thought it was on your shoulders. And we walked up the ditch. We held hands, walked up to the ditch. We knew where the drive was, knew where we turned in, and then we made it to the house. And we got in the house, Mom lit the lamp, and it was a reddish yellow, just a haze inside of that house, but we were so thankful to be home. And in the morning, we went to the windowsills, and there were piles of red Oklahoma dirt that were piled quite high on those old windows where we had it leaked in. But that is pretty authentic. I recall it enough times and I recall the same thing, so I'm sure that was it.
Shut it off now, woman.
Do you remember that? About time Andy Zeke was in.
Why in the world would I put?
Yeah, well,
who would I play with out there?
Well, Andy.
Andy Zeke?
Yeah.
Just a dirt floor tennis court?
Yeah. Just you just somehow scraped off an area there.
Probably a lot of weeds.
And put up that old net that the coach had given him. It wasn't a very fancy court, but it was at least a tennis court.
I played quite a bit of tennis, singles and doubles in high school.
You what?
I say I played quite a bit of tennis in high school, doubles and singles. We played a lot of ping pong too, table tennis, a lot of that.
How long did you ride Beauty?
2 years.
2 years? What year? Freshman, sophomore?
Yes, and then I drove to Model A and carried Andy Zeke, Lee Boyd, and Maxine and
Francis probably. Francis.
No, Maxine and
brother
Darlene and something.
Oh yeah, Darlene.
What were their names?
Darlene Fry.
Darlene and her brother. There were 4 of them.
4 of them? Well,
yes.
Boyd's Lee.
I'd go over and pick him up, Lee Boyd.
Yeah, down below land?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
I'd go over
did you pick up the Zeke's, did you?
Zeke's lived on the state line. I picked up as we drove by. But I had to go over 2 mile there and mile back to pick Lee Boyd up and then return him in the evening.
And that was all dirt road.
All dirt road. It rained while I had to slough through the mud.
It was dirt clear up to Highway 4 there.
Yes, I didn't have any gravel. I didn't go up at the next...
Where did you get that? Was that one that... Was that the Model A that you...
Yes.
California?
Yes.
Where did you get that?
I bought it, I think, from Graham in Hubble.
Who?
For Graham. He was the mechanic.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The mechanic in Hubble. Paid $75 for it.
I was wondering, how did you get to come up with $75?
I don't know. I was a sophomore in high school. I was supposed to be a pig or two, but it'd take a lot of pigs to make $75.
Yeah, 4 cents a pound.
Yeah. And we did
corn 4 cents a bushel. Well, you got it somehow anyway.
Then I sold it for $50 3 years later. After
How
taking
much did Brown put into building that, rebuilding it? 1,000 or?
Pardon?
How many thousand did Brown put into rebuilding that?
About 17,000. He paid $3,500 for it. He's got $20,000 in it.
Where did he get it?
He bought it from Adrian.
He paid $3,500 to Adrian?
That's what I understood.
What year did you buy the Model A? It's a 29, right?
And it was a 29, and I bought it in 37.
Okay. And then so you sold it in 40?
Sold it in 40, and then that Adrian Date kept it for the next 40 or 50 years, whatever it was.
50 years, yeah.
And
Almost 60.
now it's down in Florida.
Ron said or someone got an email out with Ron, and I don't know if the two were with him. Did you see?
I think it's me and Mary.
It's you and Mary, okay.
Mary and I, rather.
And that was depicting the bank robber.
Yeah.
What was the name? I can't remember.
Bonnie and Clyde or
Bonnie and
something.
Clyde.
I think he might have sent a couple of them. Was it just recently, like within the last?
Quite fairly recently.
Yeah, that would have been when Mary and I went down there.
Okay, well I didn't quite, I recognized the face, but I just didn't, I couldn't bring the name. All dressed up.
Some of the old state decals are still on the front windshield. Are they still there? Did he
Yes,
replace them?
they're still there.
Montana and various ones. Are we?
What were that? So when you went to California trip?
Yes. And I reviewed that in the tape earlier this morning.
We did.
The trip, the five
You bring up
trip.
the grapes in Oregon?
No, I didn't mention that. I could have.
What about grapes?
Well, whenever we traveled on this trip, we were all products of the Depression. So we knew how to save a penny and pinch a penny and make the nickel on the buffalo on the nickel really bellow. So when we hit all the relatives we could, then when we went to grape country or apple country or out in the west, any fruit thing, well, we would stock up on that because it's dirt cheap. And we were out in the grape area in California, some county, and we bought probably must have been 10 or 15 pounds of grapes. It was a huge brown paper bag. Well, guess what? We ate the next 3 meals. We ate grapes, but we didn't do any planning ahead because we headed for the desert.
Oh no!
Right after eating about 3 meals of grapes. Well, after the grapes began to do their number on us, we had to go for shelter. Well, there wasn't anything higher than sagebrush for 50 miles. Want to do your thing in a hurry. Behind sagebrush is a trick.
Well, they got fertilized pretty well out there for a while.
The point is, when we were right by the road there, and all you could see is...
And then what you use to clean yourself? Sagebrush?
That was the least of our worries.
Well, we were used to corn cob back that time, so I wouldn't think a sagebrush was too good, but I doubt what he carried toilet paper.
Well, it was amusing, though, to see 3 or 4 heads that looked like sagebrush. All you can see was the head sticking above the sagebrush. We did our thing.
Well, I can always visualize that. I saw a car just like that in Essex this summer, and just identical. And they had a kind of a case on the back of it, and I talked to the gentleman a little bit. But it reminded me of you saying you hooked your legs over the lights and rode on fenders quite a bit.
Much of the trip was 1 or 2 of us were on the fender with our leg hooked over the headlight. But after all, there were 5 of us in that. You can tell you, I tried to get in that. 2 of us now today. 2 of me about fills that back seat. And we had 5 of us, so to give us more room.
There weren't too many fat guys lived on the farm in the 30s Depression, I tell you. You didn't weigh much over 140 pounds, did you?
No, I didn't weigh. At that time, I only weighed 135.
And Lee was a little one. Now, I don't know how Adrian made it.
He was bigger.
He was bigger than
But Adrian,
Andy, he was a little larger, but not too much more.
Adrian and I did all the driving.
Did you?
You know.
But what was gas back at that time?
12 gallons for $1.
Pardon?
$12 gallons for $1.
12 gallons for $1. Well, that's 8, 9 cents.
Nothing to stop. We didn't think anything about it.
8 cents a gallon.
Yeah, about 12.5 cents a gallon.
Oh, 8 times 12.
We traveled for. Did I mention that in an earlier tape, Mark?
What's that?
About how we traveled on the trip. How we traveled something like 7,000 miles.
Yep.
In 3 weeks. Our meals were average 3 cents a meal, and we traveled for 1/4 cent a mile, Donald. 1/4 cent a mile per
Isn't it
boy.
amazing how that thing held up? You went through a lot of rough country there.
We had many flat tires. We put new brake bands on. We put new alignment on. I put a radiator on. I'd time it 2 or 3 times a day.
Well, you must have had a little bit of cash then.
Well, we didn't.
Your pool.
It didn't cost anything to time it, but we'll take a left up here at this light. Is this Walmart in here somewhere? Yeah. We take a left here.
Yeah.
They were beautiful horses, year after year, and they'd pull weights as a demonstration at the city fair. Big thing. And Uncle Harry was very proud, and rightly so. And Uncle Grover challenged him. He said, "You give me a long enough rope, tie it up behind your big draft horses, and let me lock myself into a good stance, and I can hold back your team of horses." And I guess he did it. He was a very, very strong man, but there was enough stretch in the rope, I guess, that somehow Uncle Grover met the challenge. And then Uncle Grover was known that he could get his back underneath a corner of a boxcar. Now, a boxcar wears a whole thing with a good many tons, and he could lift the boxcar somehow off the ground or off the chassis or something with his strength. And he was a very strong man.
He was a big man.
I was very impressed as a small boy.
He took me out. Remember when he took us through the new rocket? He took you and Dad and I through. At least I'm pretty sure you were there when had the new rocket engine, that diesel engine.
Well, I know when the rocket came in.
The first passenger trains on the Rock-Island line.
He showed it off, did he?
He took us up and took us through the cab of it.
Is that right? No, I don't remember that.
I can remember him one time taking me out to the East Yards, and it was a division yard there, where one line went to from there one line went to Kansas City and one line went to Chicago.
Yes.
And then that was called the division point. And we were out in those yards, and he said, "Well, let's train going west. We'll just ride down to the station and jump off." Or he says, "I think I'm going to stop down there." So I think probably a half mile or so. But when we got down there, the train didn't stop.
Oh.
And he said, "Well, we're going to have to jump for it." And he said, "I'll show you how to do it." And you know how they would do it. They would hang on with one hand, and then they would drop her. You'd drop running. Well, he jumped, and there I was on that train heading for Denver. And I had no alternative. But I made it off. It sure scared me.
No, I don't remember that. I don't think I was with you on that.
But you remember all the battles between the Democrats and Republicans? He was the only Democrat there.
Is that right?
And all the rest of them Republicans. And that was an ongoing argument every time they got together.
Was this back in the day when the Democrats were the conservatives and the...
No, it was Roosevelt's days.
Roosevelt.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Well, you know, they would always get together, and sometimes they get pretty heated about it.
What would have been some of the political arguments back then? What would have been the Democrats' platform versus the Republican platform?
Well, I know back then it was very similar to the Depression was very similar to this time. Of course, that was in the 30s, and if I read the history on it. But Roosevelt then came in during the 30s with a New Deal, much similar to what we had today, and he brought in the WPA program, which was a workman's
Public administration. And the NRA, the National Recovery Act.
Well, yes, but it was the WPA, which is a workman's something, People's Act. And that's the point of time when many of our important or our landmarks of the country, the parks, were built during that. There's a lot of work on roads. The one particular one that I know of is in Colorado at Grand Junction, and it's a Colorado National Monument. That was all built with civil service, or with the young people. It was
volunteers.
No, they were paid,
Something like welfare,
It was welfare.
paid welfare.
But people in our area, of course, were all farmers and independent. And they were very critical of the people working on the WPA, because if you had a WPA project, they worked on most of the municipal plants and
There's a lot of dignity
municipal
among
governments.
A lot of dignity among the farmers. They didn't feel like they needed a handout, and this was just welfare, paid welfare.
Yeah,
I
right.
can remember when they started to subsidize the crops and for crops and compensate them for growing or not growing. And Dad one time had money somehow coming from the subsidy, and it was available at the courthouse. And I remember Dad saying, "The government doesn't owe me anything." And he didn't go in and collect it. I argue with him and say, "Well, Dad, it's there, paid for it. The government doesn't owe me anything." He wouldn't go get it,
No.
and he didn't. That was the pride, the integrity they had in being independent and not depending on the government. What a turnaround from today.
But it was pretty much the same Recovery Act, and that's why they called upon, they recalled the Roosevelt days, because they're very similar. The stock market crashed in the 29 with similar situation now. A lot of investment at that time. The country was growing. The 20s were the flapper years, where there was a lot of wealth, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of growth. But when the stock market went, then's when the corn prices went down to 4%, 4 cents a bushel. Then in the 30s, the farmers rebelled, and they had an organization, and they killed off. They would take their cattle and their hogs and dig trenches and throw them in the trenches rather than to sell them for nothing. So there was quite a rebellion in the 30s, but it's very similar to what it was at that time, brought about by over optimism, and I don't know if they had the greed or I don't know that we had all the
Approaching Hubble now. We're going to take a left up here, Mark, and go down through there. We're approaching our home country now, Donald and I am, which we know these roads and back roads and farm the area in our hometown, and our childhood days, adolescent days are spent in next 10 miles from here. We're a mile now north of the state line. We're taking a left now into Hubble, which now is a decadent city. It used to be a shopping area for farmers in the area. Dad used to come down to do his banking here in the early days. He bought machinery here to do all farmer in the early days, in the late 20s, early 30s, probably early 30s. And we brought grain here, many a load of grain we brought down behind horses or behind the Model A Ford. Donald brought grain down. This is Main Street, and not much left of the city. It's nothing but practically a ghost town. Right immediately ahead of us, we've been down, Don and I, in the years past, and the whole area would flood, and this, from almost maybe just a few hundred feet beyond this stop sign here, this would be all underwater, and it would be Rose Creek would flood. We'll go right straight on down through town. And Rose Creek would flood and do a lot of damage, and it left it a ghost town. It used to be a nice parking area over here to the right in a couple of blocks. The country, one of the last churches in town here. We never worshipped in Hubble, but this is a typical western town, and they're one town about every 6 or 8 miles throughout the county, and this is one of the two closest to us. Chester, 10 miles to the west of our right now. It's where we'll go to later, where we went to high school. But this is it's a ghost town. Main Street's coming ahead, immediately left another block where the old bank was, and Dad I had my first checking account there, or savings account. Should be a brick building. There it is on the corner
Still there.
where it says bank. Looks like it's, I don't know whether it's still operating or not, but that's where Dad did his banking business there. And right next to it or somewhere there used to be a store with a library. And the library, Mother would bring me down to pick up books. And I would pick up 4, 5, 6 books and read during
Which one was the library?
Well, I don't.
This block one here, maybe?
I'm not sure.
Where the high school gym was. This block
It
building.
might be. I don't know. I don't even recognize it now.
You played basketball in that, Richard. You probably did.
Grandpa, you played basketball in that building right there? That's a gym?
Okay, if Donald says
That's
so,
you
it
sit
was.
down?
Yeah, that was the old gym. Yeah.
Okay.
You just had balconies around there,
And over to the right
the
is
sideline was a wall.
and marked to the right here across the street. This is our shopping area. There was the hardware and I suppose a grocery store, and
Yeah.
now it's all ghost. That's all that's left. And all left in town is really the granaries, just I suppose speak of. Don, where's Graham's garage from here? You have
Back to the left.
go
couple
ahead
blocks.
to the left and turn left, and we'll circle the block. If we get in there, we'll take a left right in here.
Right. The old elevator's still the same.
Blacksmith and welding.
Yeah, I'll take left here. No,
Sadly.
where is the Graham's garage somewhere in here?
It's got to be back a couple of north, 2 or 3 blocks back north.
Okay, well,
The old lumber yard used to be on
head
the
up a
corner.
back alley if you can here. Can you get
Go
in
to
through
the end
there?
here, now go to the end of the road and turn left.
Okay.
I think this road takes us all the way back.
Now this
there.
would, during a flood, this would be all underwater, maybe a foot or two or more, and it just about wiped out the town more than once. Set him back. Now, which of those buildings would be?
Right straight
I
there.
doubt it.
Way up to the end it's a road.
You think it's that metal one?
No, it's way up to the end.
Oh, is it that far?
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
Well, I'm sure it
And
is.
that's
I'm
where I
pretty
bought
sure
my
it
Model A
is.
Ford. That's where Dad would bring the cars to be greased. I remember one time Dad never would grease the cars. He had a hard time doing other more important things. He took a car, their car, family car, one time to Graham, and it was the front end was the shackles were out. It was just shot, and Mr. Graham said, "Roy," he said, "probably that it's had too much grease." And is that it ahead?
No, that's the side of it. I'm not quite sure.
Well, that's a different place than where I was.
Well,
My
I
Graham.
remember one back there.
This is different. I don't know this.
This is where Uncle Frank worked. This is where the garage that I remember.
Okay, well that's new to me.
And
Okay,
that is it.
that's what's left of it.
So this might have been where you bought your Model A?
No, mine's with downtown. This is a different store. This is one Don remembers in later years. This is this.
You don't think that's Graham's
No,
garage?
that's no. It didn't even. It didn't. It was a different garage entirely.
Well, that's the one that I remember.
So this came years after I left town, apparently. But the other garage downtown is gone. Obviously, we'll go down right back down through town.
I'm sorry, I thought that was.
And he used to do all of our mechanical
There's
work.
the old high school.
The high school's up ahead, yes.
That's where you went to high school up there?
No, but it was the Hubble High
the
School.
Hubble High School,
area.
okay.
For the we went to Chester High School.
Okay.
And we're going back down. We'll show you. We came down this once. But Mr. Graham did all our garage work, all our repair work. Dad gets stuck with the problem with the tractor while he'd consult Mr. Graham.
Is on Main Street here, do you think?
Pardon?
You think it was on Main Street
It
here?
was right down there behind the bank.
Okay, well you should know better than I do.
That's where we had it.
Wasn't where Stradley's was.
So they
was it?
probably tore it down after one of the floods.
I think it's been long gone. In fact, the front door was faced north. It was,
Oh, well, I can't
it
remember
faced
that.
north, and it was right. It was in that block, somewhere in that block, behind the bank,
Oh,
somewhere in that area, or in that general area. We turn right here. There, we can turn. This is the park.
City Park.
City Park, and there used to be a huge tree. I see it's gone now. It covered about a big part of, I'd say nearly a third of that lot. It was the biggest tree for miles around that I can remember as a boy. Take a left here. Steve Young's home was over to the right there. We see that greenhouse over to the right. He had a garage. He was the one that had a handicapped arm. Aunt Dell's son-in-law. This is a patch of sunflowers immediately ahead of us here that we never grew when we never grew any. Did you grow any sunflowers, Don?
No.
So that's something new to me.
This is good old Rose Creek bottomland, though.
Yes, this is good prime farmland. So all Hubble left in Hubble is really the granary industry, storage for the farmers in the area. And we're approaching now. We're exiting Hubble now to the southwest, and I assume we can still get through here. Can't get on yet.
We drove down there not too long ago.
We'll soon be on the state line, Kansas and Nebraska, which we've been familiar with over the years. So, and as we approach this curve and over the bridge, this is Rose Creek again, that goes for miles to the south and southwest. We fished out it and played with it. After we go beyond the bridge, here we'll take a sharp right. Is that road still open, Don?
Yes.
Right beyond the bridge, we'll take a hook back to the right.
Okay.
Get the old cave.
You know, this is Rose Creek.
So did you actually fish out of here at any time, or was it always too
downstream?
low?
We used to seine out of it, fish out of it, picnic out by the side of it. And now this is the state line. It's ahead of us. It's sort of, I don't know where it is right here. Do you know, Don? Where
It meanders with the...
Does it meander with the creek, the state line?
Yeah,
So right now, Mark is in Kansas and I'm in Nebraska.
Do you remember the old cave?
Used to be an old cave to our left here.
It's still there.
That used to be a scary thing. We don't know who somebody used to live in it. Cave in the side of the hill there, and I never did stop and look in it. We always saw. I don't know what was your stories about it.
That time, but it always had it.
Some hermit stayed there. That I remember that 70, 80 years ago.
You see it?
There. Well, it was there. No, that's not it. It was there somewhere.
We passed it.
It's up the spring or the summer.
You did see it?
Yeah.
And that's at least 80
Someone
years old.
lived